Welcome back. All right, WrestleMania 6. Yep, another WrestleMania today. We're looking at WrestleMania 6. A WrestleMania that had 14 matches on it and still didn't end up taking 12 or 13 hours as it would now if you had a 14 match card. People would look at a 14 match card now and go, oh my gosh, I need to sleep tonight. But back then, not a big deal. There was even a dark match before the event got going, so that's for fans who were there early, not broadcast on closed circuit or pay per view. But at any rate, the first broadcast match is the model Rick Martel defeating Coco Beware by submission. Coco Beware, I don't remember ever seeing him win a feud. I don't. I don't remember seeing him win a feud. He really was one of those middle of the card guys that you go through on your way up. And so for Martel, who's building himself up, going through Coco Beware is where he was at there. Demolition would win back the tag belts against the colossal connection of Andre the Giant and Haku. Demolition full on faces at this point. They were just too popular, too cool. Their music was too cool. But the Colossal Connection is a forgotten great tag team of Andre the Giant and Haku. I like that tag team a lot, and obviously at this point, Andre not very mobile and a lot of health issues with Andre, so putting him into a tag match with Haku made a lot of sense. And so, yeah, Demolition gets the belts back at WrestleMania. Earthquake, the man known as John Tenta, in 4 minutes and 52 seconds, he defeats Hercules. So Earthquake with a big win there, and of course he's building himself up to a feud with the world champion to be Hulk Hogan. Hogan's going to be champion again, but that's for discussion another time. Earthquake / John Tenta, great guy. Honestly, I've watched the Dark Side of the Ring on him. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it. It's a bit of a tearjerker, but honestly, I mean, Dark Side of the Ring is not called Dark Side of the Ring because it's the wonderful side of life. So, Earthquake was a good man. John Tenta was a good man and gets the win over Hercules there. 7 minutes and 48 seconds into a match, Brutus Beefcake defeats Mr. Perfect. This is as they were building up Brutus the Barber Beefcake for a possible Intercontinental title run, and then he had the accident that summer before a planned match at SummerSlam. So Beefcake gets badly hurt. This is when he fractures his face, right? So absolutely brutal injury that would take him out for quite some time. But Mr. Perfect doing the honors here and putting over Brutus, who was quite popular at this point in time. So while we look, and there's another Dark Side of the Ring episode too. I would say that it was understood that Beefcake was Hulk Hogan's buddy, but I don't remember that being a talking point in the late 80s, early 90s. I remember that being a talking point later on, especially when he goes to WCW and goes through various different names in WCW for them to try to get him over. It was quite obvious that Hulk Hogan was doing his best to keep him employed. But Beefcake was legitimately a pretty popular wrestler on his own at this point in time. 6 minutes and 49 seconds into a match between Roddy Piper and Bad News Brown. It's a double countout. This is the infamous match where Roddy Piper decided to paint half of his face black. I don't know why, but apparently Andre the Giant decided to rib him here. The paint that he used was, of course, intended to be the water-soluble type that washes off. This was not the type of paint that Roddy Piper was using. Much to his chagrin, it did not wash off. And so he had to get on a flight after, and he had to travel after with half of his face still painted black, which I'm sure Andre thought was hilarious. And what are you going to do when a 7'5" giant does something to you as a practical joke? The answer is nothing. You're just gonna, that was funny, and Mr. 7'5". But yeah, so that's how that turned out. And yeah, it wasn't a fantastic match either, and the whole thing was just kind of weird. It takes 19 seconds for the Hart Foundation to defeat the Bolsheviks. Yeah, the ring entrances were way longer. The Hart Foundation faces at this point, and when a match is that short, you know that it's because something else went over. But look at the match times. What would have went over? So yeah, the Hart Foundation wins in 19 seconds. Don't even need to get your jacket off for that. Just go for the pin. 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Barbarian defeats Tito Santana. One of the reasons I don't look back at all these either necessarily, and I just go by memory, is because I remember Tito Santana became the Matador. It had never been established that Tito Santana had ever done anything like that. So it was weird. It's weird. I was like, okay, he's the Matador. No, he's Tito Santana. Why are we doing this? But yeah, Tito at this point puts over the Barbarian. We're not seeing the number of Samoans that we would see later in wrestling, but there are still some Samoans showing up on this list. Dusty Rhodes. I was so excited when Dusty Rhodes went to WWF, and then they put him in the polka dots, and it's like, okay, what? Then they gave him Sapphire for a manager, and that led to some more. What? Seriously? But at least they put him in a feud with Randy Savage, and he defeats Randy Savage at 7 minutes and 52 seconds. So Dusty Rhodes does get a win here. Dusty was a wrestler that once he got to WWF, it was kind of clear, at least to me, that I don't think they knew what the appeal was of Dusty, or they didn't care. Maybe Vince just wanted to embarrass Dusty, as has been the suspicion over the years. And, Dusty somehow made it work. He did. He made the polka dots work as well as he can. It's a subject that gets brought up here and there in Cody Rhodes promos and Cody Rhodes feuds. So, yeah, Dusty Rhodes made the best of a bad situation there. And it's a shame because, honestly, if Dusty Rhodes had come in as the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, as the serious son of a plumber character rather than the smiling guy with the polka dots, who knows, we might have had some really kick-ass feuds involving Dusty Rhodes and any member of this roster from top to bottom. But nope, polka dots. The Orient Express defeated the Rockers by countout at 7 minutes and 38 seconds. So the Rockers do not win at WrestleMania again. And we're not too far away from Shawn Michaels going out on his own and becoming the superstar that Shawn Michaels was going to be. And I think we saw as the years went by with the Rockers that Michaels was the more beloved of the two and probably the better wrestler, and definitely the ladies preferred Shawn over Marty overall. So yeah, it was understandable that the Rockers were going to at some point break up and Michaels was going to be a major star. 4 minutes and 15 seconds is what it took Jim Duggan to defeat Dino Bravo. You know, it's interesting. You'd think me being Canadian, I would have been a Dino Bravo fan. Not so much. Dino Bravo for me he was fine. He was fine. I never really saw him as like a main event level guy. Yeah, I mean, he was a good wrestler. He had a good physique, but I don't know. At any rate, Duggan beats him, so Duggan gets a win at WrestleMania. Good for him there. Then at 11 minutes and 50 seconds, nice long match, Ted DiBiase defeats Jake Roberts by countout. So here's a problem. Double countout, countout, countout. We're getting into an era where WWF's like, well, we got to protect these guys, right? It can't just be a clean pinfall. To the point where now it's kind of ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous if you watch Raw and SmackDown every week, how often the match finishes aren't finishes at all. It's just somebody runs in and then the match is thrown out. Just what was the point of that? That wasted. And all of those matches are longer than anything on this card. So, DiBiase and Roberts win by DiBiase in a countout for the $1 million title. The $1 million title was weird. I was never a big fan of it, to be honest. When people go after the $1 million title, I was thinking, why? I actually thought it was kind of ugly, to be honest. And I mean, it was DiBiase's belt. He just made it. I mean, it's not the same as the FTW belt in AEW, but it had a similar kind of connotation in that it wasn't really an official title in the company or anything. So, at any rate, yeah, DiBiase wins there. 1 minute and 49 seconds for Big Boss Man to defeat Akeem, the Dream. So, there you go. One man gang is gone. Akeem's in, and he loses in 1 minute and 59 seconds to Big Boss Man. Thanks for coming out. Boss Man is one of those wrestlers, too, I look back on, and I think, absolutely could have been a world champion at some point. Just he ends up being around that mid-card instead. It takes 3 minutes and 59 seconds for Rick Rude to defeat Jimmy Snuka. So Snuka and Rude, the warm-up match before the main event. Rick Rude, I've mentioned before in this series, I thought Rude was a fantastic wrestler. Loved his work ethic. And while I obviously booed him because he was the bad guy, from the comfort of my couch and all that. I didn't go to any of these matches live. I did see wrestling live when I was a kid. I saw Stampede Wrestling once. I saw All-Star Wrestling. Got to be 3 or 4 times I saw All-Star Wrestling live. So, yeah, and All-Star Wrestling's just out of Vancouver. Rick Rude defeating Jimmy Snuka, the last match before the main event that went 22 minutes and 51 seconds. Now, neither Ultimate Warrior nor Hulk Hogan had a great move set. So this match was not about technical moves and all this. It was about both wrestlers and what they had. The Hulkamania versus the Warriors, and it was a pretty evenly split crowd. I thought, although by this point in time, I think most of us wanted a change. So when Ultimate Warrior, who was the Intercontinental title champion at the time, wins the world title, I think most people were quite happy about that because Hulk Hogan, we're up to WrestleMania 6. It's been 5 years of Hogan. Okay, we're ready for somebody else. And so Warrior goes in. Of course, Hogan would get back into the main event because, of course, he did. Warrior honestly had just an amazing look. He had amazing charisma. And while he was not a great wrestler, and I don't think there's anybody who would argue that he was a great wrestler, when he won that title, most of us popped. I did. I was really happy when Warrior won the match. And I was really surprised that Hogan was willing to do that. And it is one of those odd occasions where both wrestlers were a face. The interesting part of that is Hogan, of course, always wrestles like a heel. So maybe that lent itself to people wanting Warrior to win the match. And of course, the promos from Warrior towards Hogan. Hulk Hogan, just the way he would talk and yeah, Hulk Hogan. We used to think it was Kogan was the pronunciation for his last name. I even remember this is what WrestleMania 6. Yeah, that would have been when I was still in school, and it was. Did you see what Warrior said? Yeah, was he talking? I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about. But man, when you're talking about I'm going to be the pilot of your plane and I'm going to crash it into the ground, don't you die too? Like, what? What's the why? Why would you do that? And and then pivot to talking about the title. But Warrior was different. He was different. I know Bobby Heenan wasn't a huge fan. The Bobby Heenan discussions about Warrior, one of my favorite things in wrestling history. I do agree though that WWF did him dirty with the way they treated him for years. And I do agree that the way WWF has kind of glossed that over since his passing, kind of gross. I know they made up before he passed, but yeah, they've really kind of just shoved all the negativity about Warrior aside. And I think there's a balance there. I think he was a really good wrestler at the exact right time, and he was a champion because everybody loved him. Not dissimilar from what we see with Jey Uso right now in WWE. And the criticisms of Warrior, not completely dissimilar to Jey Uso, although Jey Uso is a much better wrestler than Ultimate Warrior was. Warrior, really, really limited moveset. And it doesn't seem from all the material you see on Warrior that he necessarily took in a lot of new information and took a lot in terms of guidance. But when you're at the top of the card and you just win all the time, you might feel like, I don't really need all that other stuff. I don't need to learn a whole bunch of other moves. I just go out there, I shake the ropes, I scream, the fans love it, I wrestle for a minute and a half, and then I'm back in the back with the guys. So, I mean, if you can do it, Goldberg wrestled a very similar style for ages, and it got over. And there is something to be said for wrestlers getting over just by looking badass or acting badass, and that's what Warrior did. So, there you go, WrestleMania 6, as we continue down through this WrestleMania history. And this was a fun one. This was a pretty good WrestleMania, in my opinion. Definitely, I think, better card than the others. This is where we're starting to get into every one of these matches had a feud, had some build to it. And that wasn't the case with the earlier WrestleManias necessarily. Sometimes you'd have a match that's just randomly thrown in. And yeah, we got away from that. And this is really where WrestleMania starts becoming a season. And people start really looking like, okay, the next WrestleMania main event will be. And with Warrior winning the title, there were a lot of options that might have been out there. But we'll talk about WrestleMania 7 tomorrow. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It's greatly appreciated. I will talk to you again soon.